This happened 3 years ago on Halloween night, and I still can't go into basements without feeling like I'm gonna lose it. I'm 27 now, but back then I was 24 and living with 3 roommates in this old house just outside Austin. The place was massive, one of those early 1900s homes that had been converted into a rental. High ceilings, hardwood floors, and a basement that we barely ever used except for storage. My roommate had this brilliant idea to throw a huge Halloween party. We're talking costumes, kegs, the whole deal. We invited probably 60 people, and word got around campus. So by 10 p.m. our house was absolutely packed. There had to be at least 100 people crammed into our living room and kitchen. Music was blasting, everyone was drinking, and the vibe was perfect. I was dressed as a zombie, and my girlfriend at the time was a vampire. Pretty basic, but we didn't care. We were having a blast. Around 11:30, she told me she needed to use the bathroom. The one upstairs had a line of like 10 people, so I told her about the half bath we had in the basement. Nobody really knew about it because we never mentioned it to guests. Just go down the stairs in the kitchen, I said. Make a left, and it's the door at the end. Don't go into the other rooms down there. It's just storage and it's a mess. She nodded and headed down. I went back to playing beer pong with some friends. About 10 minutes passed, maybe 15, and I realized she hadn't come back up. I figured maybe she'd gotten distracted talking to someone or went outside for air. But then 20 minutes passed, then 30. I started asking people if they'd seen her. Nobody had. I checked outside, checked upstairs, checked every room. Nothing. That's when I got this sinking feeling in my stomach. I went back to the kitchen and opened the basement door. I called down the stairs. No answer. The lights were on down there, which was weird because I knew we'd turned them off earlier. The basement lights were on a switch at the top of the stairs, and I distinctly remembered flipping it off that morning. I headed down. The stairs were old and creaky, and with all the noise from the party upstairs, it felt like descending into a different world. When I got to the bottom, I called out again. Still nothing. The basement was divided into several rooms. The bathroom was to the left, like I'd told her. Straight ahead was what we called the main room, which was mostly empty, except for some old furniture. To the right was a storage area where we kept boxes, old appliances, random junk. And then there was another room at the very back that we'd never really explored. The door was always locked, and our landlord said it was just the mechanical room for the furnace and water heater. I checked the bathroom first. Empty. The light was off. I checked the main room. Nothing. Then I heard something. A faint sound coming from the back of the basement. It sounded like someone crying. I called out, moving toward the sound. That's when I noticed the door to the locked room was open. Not wide open, just cracked, with light spilling out into the hallway. My heart started pounding. That door had been locked for the entire year we'd lived there. I'd tried opening it once out of curiosity, and it wouldn't budge. But now it was open. I approached slowly and pushed the door wider. Inside was not a mechanical room. It was furnished. There was an old couch, a table, a lamp, and a sleeping bag in the corner. Someone had been living down here. And there was my girlfriend. She was sitting on the couch, staring straight ahead, not moving. Her face was completely pale. What the hell? I rushed over to her. I've been looking everywhere for you. Are you okay? She didn't respond at first. She just kept staring at the wall. Then slowly, she turned to look at me, and I saw tears running down her face. There was someone down here, she whispered. When I came out of the bathroom, I heard a noise from this room. The door was open a little, and I thought maybe you were down here looking for something. So I called your name and pushed the door open. And? I asked, feeling my skin crawl. There was a man. He was sitting right here on this couch, just sitting in the dark. When I turned on the light, he looked at me and said, "You're not supposed to be down here." I looked around the room more carefully. There were food wrappers on the table, empty water bottles, a backpack in the corner. Whoever had been staying here had been here for a while. "Where did he go?" I asked. She shook her head. "I don't know." I screamed and he stood up and walked toward me. I backed into the hallway and he just stopped in the doorway and stared at me. Then the lights went out. When they came back on, he was gone. I've been sitting here too scared to move. I pulled out my phone and called 911. While I was on with the dispatcher, I heard footsteps above us. Heavy footsteps, moving through the basement ceiling. Someone was walking around on the first floor, but the footsteps were too deliberate, too separate from the chaos of the party. We ran upstairs. I told my roommates what happened. We searched the entire house, checking every room, every closet. With 100 people there, it was almost impossible to find anyone specific. But then one of my roommates grabbed my arm. "Dude," he said, pointing toward the back door. "Look." A guy was leaving through our back door. He was wearing regular clothes, jeans and a dark jacket, no costume. He had a backpack slung over his shoulder. He walked calmly across our backyard and disappeared into the alley behind the house. The police showed up about 10 minutes later. We took them down to the basement and showed them the room. They searched it thoroughly and found some seriously disturbing stuff. The backpack contained zip ties, duct tape, a knife, and a bunch of photos. Photos of our house. Photos of me and my roommates. Photos of my girlfriend taken from outside through the windows. One of the officers told us that based on the evidence, this guy had been living in our basement for at least a couple weeks, maybe longer. He'd been coming and going through a small window in the storage area that we'd never noticed was unlocked. He'd been watching us, learning our schedules, taking pictures. The detective said we were lucky. He said based on what they found in that backpack, the guy had been planning something. They showed us one photo in particular that made my blood run cold. It was a picture of my girlfriend sleeping in her bed, taken from inside her bedroom. He'd been in our house while we were sleeping. They never caught him. They traced the photos back to a burner phone that had been ditched in a dumpster across town. The fingerprints in the basement room didn't match anyone in their system. It was like he was a ghost. We moved out 2 weeks later, broke our lease and everything. None of us could stay in that house knowing what had happened, knowing that some stranger had been living underneath us for weeks, watching us, waiting for the right moment. My girlfriend and I broke up about a month after that. She couldn't handle it. She started having panic attacks, couldn't sleep, kept thinking she saw him everywhere. I tried to be supportive, but honestly, I was messed up too. We both needed therapy, and being together just reminded us of that night. The thing that keeps me up at night is thinking about all the times I was home alone in that house. All the times I heard creaking or footsteps and just assumed it was the old house settling. How many times was he down there, listening to me walk around above him? How many nights did he come upstairs while I was sleeping? And the scariest part is wondering what would have happened if she hadn't found him that night. If she'd just used the bathroom and come back upstairs without noticing the open door. Would he have kept hiding down there? Would he have eventually made his move? The detective said the zip ties and duct tape suggested he was planning an abduction. I don't throw parties anymore. I don't live in old houses, and I sure as hell don't go into basements unless I absolutely have to. Because now I know that sometimes the scariest things aren't the people at your Halloween party wearing masks. Sometimes the scariest things are the people hiding in your house, wearing no mask at all, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal themselves. Every Halloween since then, I think about that guy calmly walking out our back door with his backpack. I think about how he was probably upstairs at the party, blending in with everyone else, watching us search for him. And I wonder if he's doing it again somewhere else. If there's another group of college kids living in an old house with a basement, completely unaware that someone's living beneath them, watching, waiting, planning. That's the thought that terrifies me most. Not what happened to us, but what might be happening to someone else right now. This went down 2 years ago on Halloween night, and I swear I still can't go to that mall without feeling sick to my stomach. I'm 30 now, but when this happened I was 28 and working retail at one of those big department stores in the Westfield Mall. If you've ever worked retail, you know Halloween is brutal. Everyone's scrambling for last-minute costumes, the store's a wreck, and management always makes you stay late to clean up the mess. That night was no different. I was scheduled until closing at 9, but we had inventory to finish, so I didn't actually leave until almost 11. By that time, the mall was practically dead. Most stores had already closed, the food court was dark, and there were maybe 10 cars left in the entire parking lot. Mine was way out in the back section because I'd gotten there early for my shift and the lot had been packed. I remember walking through those automatic doors and immediately feeling how cold it had gotten. The wind was whipping through the parking lot, blowing trash and leaves everywhere. I had my purse clutched tight and my keys already in my hand because I'm not stupid. Even on normal nights, empty parking lots creep me out. But it was Halloween, and something about the vibe just felt off. I was about halfway to my car when I noticed him. A guy standing near a beat-up sedan, maybe 3 rows over from where I was parked. He was wearing a skeleton face paint, the kind you see at Spirit Halloween, with black around the eyes and the teeth painted on his mouth. He had on a black hoodie and jeans, nothing too crazy, but the face paint made him stand out. At first I figured he was just leaving some Halloween party, or coming from trick-or-treating with his kids or whatever. But then I realized he was looking at me. Not just glancing, but full-on staring. I felt my stomach drop. I pretended to be on my phone and kept walking, but I could feel his eyes tracking me the whole time. When I got closer to my car, I glanced back and saw that he'd moved. He wasn't by the sedan anymore. He was closer, standing between 2 cars, still watching me. That's when I freaked out. I turned around and walked back toward the mall entrance, pulling out my phone for real this time. I called my boyfriend and told him what was going on. He told me to go back inside, find security, and wait for him to come pick me up. So that's what I did. I went back through the doors, found a security guard near the closed Macy's, and explained the situation. The guard, this older guy, probably in his 60s, seemed skeptical at first. He was like, "Ma'am, it's Halloween. Lots of people are dressed up tonight." But I insisted, so he agreed to walk me to my car. We went back outside together, and I pointed toward where I'd seen the guy. He wasn't there anymore. The sedan was gone too. The whole section was empty. The guard checked around my car, looked under it, checked the back seat, and everything seemed fine. He told me I was probably just spooked because of the holiday and the empty lot. I felt embarrassed, like maybe I'd overreacted. I thanked him, got in my car, locked the doors immediately, and started the engine. That's when I saw him again. He came out from between 2 cars, the same guy with the skeleton face paint, only now he was much closer. He was standing directly behind my car, blocking me from backing out. I couldn't see his eyes clearly because of the paint, but I could tell he was staring right at me through my rear window. I honked my horn, hoping the security guard would hear and come back. The guy didn't move. He just stood there, completely still, like some kind of mannequin. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I was going to pass out. I honked again, longer this time, and finally the guard came jogging back over. The second the guard appeared, the guy turned and walked away, slow and casual, like he had all the time in the world. He didn't run. He didn't even look back. He just walked off into the darkness between the rows of cars and disappeared. The guard called it in on his radio, and another security guy came out in a golf cart to search the lot. They didn't find anyone. The guard asked if I wanted to file a police report, and I said yes, An officer showed up about 20 minutes later and took my statement. I described the guy, the face paint, the hoodie, everything. The cop seemed concerned but said without any actual threat or contact, there wasn't much they could do. He told me to drive safe and be aware of my surroundings. I finally left the mall around midnight. I kept checking my mirrors the whole way home, terrified I'd see that sedan following me. I didn't. When I got home, I told my boyfriend everything. He wanted me to quit that job right then and there, but I couldn't afford to. Bills don't stop just because you're scared. The next day, I went back to work and talked to my manager about what happened. She seemed worried and said she'd let mall security know to keep an eye out. Then she told me something that made my blood run cold. She said another employee from a different store had reported seeing a guy matching that same description inside the mall earlier that night, just walking around, watching people. The employee said he'd been there for hours, not buying anything, just wandering. I immediately asked if they could check the security footage. My manager said she'd request it. A few days later, she called me into her office and showed me clips on her laptop. There he was, clear as day, the guy with the skeleton face paint. The footage showed him entering the mall around 7 p.m., more than 2 hours before I even left work. He was just walking around, stopping occasionally to look at people, following some of them through stores. Mall security contacted the police with the footage, and the cops said they'd investigate. They ran his image through their systems but didn't get any hits. No ID, no priors, nothing. It was like he was a ghost. The detective I spoke with said the guy probably knew where the cameras were and avoided showing his face clearly until he put the face paint on. But here's the part that really messed me up. About a week later, I saw a post in a local Facebook group. Another woman, from a town about 30 miles away, shared a story about a man in skeleton face paint who'd followed her through a different mall on Halloween night. She said he'd tried to get into her car. She'd called the police, but by the time they arrived, he was gone. I reached out to her and we compared notes. Same face paint, same black hoodie, same creepy, silent staring. She'd also gotten security footage from her mall, and when we looked at the images side by side, it was definitely the same guy. We both filed reports with our local police departments, and they said they'd coordinate. But as far as I know, nothing ever came of it. He was never identified, never caught. I still work retail, but I switched to a different mall in a different part of town. I never stay late anymore. I always leave before dark, and I never, ever park far away from the entrance. Every Halloween since then, I think about that guy. I think about how he followed me for over an hour without me noticing. I think about what he wanted, what he was planning to do. The scariest part isn't what happened, it's what could have happened. If that security guard hadn't walked me out the first time, if I'd gone straight to my car without noticing the guy, if I hadn't honked my horn, I don't know if I'd be here to tell this story. And the fact that he's still out there somewhere, possibly doing the same thing to other women, keeps me up at night. So if you're ever in an empty parking lot late at night, and you see someone just standing there, watching you, trust your gut. Don't second-guess yourself. Don't worry about being rude or overreacting. Just get help. Because I'm living proof that sometimes the scary guy in the Halloween costume isn't just trying to scare you for fun. This happened last Halloween, and it's why I don't answer my door anymore after dark. I'm 32, and I live alone in a small house in a quiet suburb outside Denver. Nothing special, just a regular neighborhood where everyone knows each other and kids ride bikes down the street. I'd installed a Ring doorbell camera about 6 months before this happened. One of those video doorbells that records whenever someone approaches your front door. I mainly got it because of package thieves, but I never thought I'd catch what I caught. Halloween night, I wasn't planning to hand out candy. I had to work late and didn't get home until almost 9 p.m. By then, Trick-or-treating was pretty much over. I changed into sweats, ordered some food, and settled in to watch a movie. I turned off my porch light so kids would know I wasn't participating. Around 10:30, my phone buzzed. It was a notification from my doorbell camera. Motion detected at front door. I figured it was a late trick-or-treater, so I ignored it. But then another notification came through, and another, and another. 4 notifications in less than 2 minutes. I opened the app to check the live feed. Nobody was there, just my empty porch and the dark street beyond. I thought maybe it was a bug or a cat setting off the motion sensor. But then I decided to check the recorded clips. The first clip showed a person walking up to my door. They were wearing all black with a white mask, one of those blank, expressionless ones you can buy at any costume shop. They stood at my door for a few seconds, then walked away. Normal enough. Probably just a trick-or-treater who saw my light was off. The second clip, 2 minutes later, showed the same person. But this time they didn't knock. They just stood there, facing my door, completely still. After about 20 seconds, they walked away again. The third clip showed them coming back. This time they stood even longer, maybe 40 seconds. They tilted their head to the side, like they were listening. Then they reached out and tried my door handle. When it didn't open, they stepped back and left. The fourth clip is what made me call the police. The person came back again, but this time they didn't leave. They stood at my door for over a minute, then slowly turned their head to look directly at the camera. They stayed like that, staring into the lens, not moving. Then they raised one hand and waved. Slowly, like they knew I was watching. I was freaking out. I checked the live feed again and they were gone. I called 911 and told. The dispatcher said an officer was on the way and to stay inside with the doors locked. While I was on the phone with her, another notification came through. The person was back, but this time they weren't alone. The clip showed 2 people standing at my door, both wearing the same blank white masks, both dressed in black. They stood side by side, completely still, staring at the camera. The dispatcher asked me to describe what I was seeing. I told her, and she said officers were 2 minutes away. I was watching the live feed, and the 2 people just stood there, not moving, not knocking, just standing on my porch like statues. Then I heard it, a knock at my back door. My blood went cold. I whispered to the dispatcher that someone was at my back door. She told me to stay on the line and stay away from the doors. I moved to the hallway where I could see both the front and back of my house. The knocking at the back door came again. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. I pulled up my doorbell camera again. The 2 people at the front door were still there, still standing motionless, which meant whoever was at my back door was a third person. The knocking stopped. Then I heard footsteps on my deck, moving along the side of the house. They were circling around, checking the windows. I could hear them testing the sliding glass door in my living room. The dispatcher kept telling me to stay calm, that officers were pulling onto my street. Suddenly, the 2 people on my front porch turned and walked away. Just like that, they left. I watched them walk down my driveway and disappear into the darkness. The footsteps outside stopped too. Everything went quiet. The police showed up about 30 seconds later. 3 officers searched my property with flashlights, checked all around my house, looked in my yard and the neighbors' yards. They didn't find anyone. It was like they'd vanished. The officers came inside and I showed them all the footage. They seemed concerned, especially about the door handle test and the waving at the camera. They said it was clearly an attempt to intimidate me, possibly to see if I was home alone. One officer said the fact that they came back multiple times meant they were planning something. They took copies of all the footage and filed a report. They increased patrols in my neighborhood for the next week and told me to call immediately if anything else happened. But nothing else did. Whoever those people were, they never came back. I still live in that house, but I'm not the same. I installed cameras on every side of the house. I keep all my curtains closed at night. I check the footage obsessively, scrolling through every notification, looking for those white masks. The police never identified who they were. They checked with neighbors, looked at other doorbell cameras on my street, but found nothing. It's like they appeared out of nowhere and disappeared the same way. What haunts me most is the waving. The way that person stared directly into the camera and waved at me. They knew I was watching. They wanted me to know they were there. And the fact that they brought others, that they were organized and coordinated, makes me think it wasn't random. Sometimes late at night, I'll get a notification from my doorbell camera. Motion detected. And my heart stops for a second before I check the footage. So far, it's always been nothing. A car passing by, a raccoon, the wind. But I know that one day, I might open that app and see those white masks again. And I don't know what I'll do if that happens.